Hyunwoo stood in the middle of the giant council chamber. The room was so big that his voice would have been lost without the translation devices floating around him. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats that rose up like a mountain on all sides. Some looked like giant lizards with scales that changed colors. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal that sparkled in the strange blue light. There were creatures with too many eyes, beings that floated instead of walking, and things that Hyunwoo could not even begin to describe. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. In all that time, he had never seen the chamber this full or this angry. The air itself seemed to buzz with tension and hostile energy. Every alien eye was focused on him, and most of those looks were not friendly. At the center of the highest platform sat Vextar, the Council's military commander. His lizard-like head was covered in dark green scales that shifted to red when he was angry. Right now, they were very red. Next to him was Mordesh, a being made of blue crystal who served as the Council's science advisor. Light pulsed through her body in patterns that Hyunwoo had learned meant she was thinking hard about something. Human. Vextar's voice boomed through the chamber's speakers. You have heard our decision. Your species has developed dangerous technology without permission. Your fusion reactors are too powerful. Your artificial intelligence systems are too advanced. Your ships travel too fast through space. All of this threatens the peace and safety of the galaxy. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. He had expected this day would come. For months, the Council had been asking more and more questions about Earth's technology. They wanted to know how humans had built fusion reactors so quickly. They demanded to see the plans for Earth's AI systems. They were especially interested in the quantum drives that let human ships travel between stars. We have made our decision, Mordesh added. Her crystal body flashed bright blue as she spoke. Earth must surrender all military technology to the Council. Your people will be placed under protective custody. We will govern your world to make sure you do not create more dangerous weapons. This is for the good of all species in the galaxy. A wave of sound rolled through the chamber. Aliens were chittering, growling, buzzing, and making other noises that the translators could not turn into words. Most seemed to agree with the Council's decision. Humans were dangerous. Humans needed to be controlled. Hyunwoo touched the small communication device hidden in his ear. Far away on Earth, Jimin was listening to everything that happened in this chamber. She was one of Earth's best military strategists, and she had been preparing for this moment for a long time. You have 72 standard hours to comply, Vextar continued. Send a message to your world leaders. Tell them to surrender their weapons and prepare for Council occupation. If they refuse, we will be forced to take action. The chamber fell silent. Every alien was waiting to see what the human would say. Many expected him to beg for mercy. Others thought he might try to argue or make a deal. Some hoped he would simply agree and save everyone the trouble of a war. Hyunwoo straightened his shoulders. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people living their lives without knowing that alien beings were deciding their fate. He thought about his daughter back in Seoul, who was just starting university. He thought about all the human colonies that the Council did not even know existed. Honorable members of the Council, he said in a clear, calm voice. I have heard your ultimatum. I will send your message to Earth's leaders immediately. Vexitar's scales shifted to a slightly less angry shade of red. Good. Your species shows wisdom in accepting the reality of the situation. However, Hyunwoo continued, I must also deliver Earth's response to your demands. The chamber became even quieter. Mordesh's crystal body stopped flashing and became a steady, cold blue. Vextar leaned forward in his seat. Humanity respectfully declines. The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens were shouting, roaring, and making sounds that hurt Hyunwoo's ears even through the translators. Some creatures stood up and shook appendages at him. Others flashed angry colors or released clouds of what might have been rage pheromones. Vextar slammed something that looked like a hammer onto his desk. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Slowly, the noise died down. Did you say? Declines? Vexitar asked. His scales were now so red they were almost black. That is correct, Hyunwoo replied. Earth's government has reviewed your demands and respectfully declines to surrender our sovereignty or our technology. Mordesh's crystal body flashed rapidly between blue and white. You refuse protective custody? You would rather face annihilation than accept our guidance? We prefer freedom, Hyun-woo said simply. Somewhere in the chamber, an alien made a sound like laughter, but not happy laughter. Other creatures began talking among themselves in excited voices. The translators were working hard to keep up. The human species has existed for less than 200,000 years, Vextar said. The Council has maintained galactic peace for over 50 million years. You think your primitive weapons can stand against our combined fleets? Hyun-woo felt the communication device in his ear vibrate once. That was Jimin's signal. Everything was ready. We are certainly willing to find out, he said. The chamber erupted again. This time, Vextar did not try to restore order. He was too busy staring at the human ambassador with something that might have been the beginning of worry. Through his communication device, Hyun-woo could hear the faint sound of alarms starting to ring in the Seoul Defense Command. Across human space, hidden bases were receiving activation codes. Ships that the Council had never seen were powering up their engines. Weapons that had been built in secret were being loaded and aimed. The Council had made their choice. Now they would learn what choice humanity had made in response. This session is adjourned, Vextar announced. The human may return to his ship. In 72 hours our fleets will move toward the Sol system. This decision is final. Hyun-woo bowed politely to the Council and walked toward the exit. Behind him, thousands of aliens watched him go. Most of them thought they were watching a dead human walking. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. As he reached his small diplomatic ship, Hyun-woo allowed himself a small smile. The Council thought they knew everything about humanity. They were about to get the biggest surprise in galactic history. The emergency meeting room deep under Seoul was buzzing with activity. Dong-hyun sat at the head of a long table surrounded by screens showing star maps, ship positions, and communication channels from across human space. As director of the Global Defense Initiative, he had been preparing for this day for over 20 years. Hyun-woo delivered the message perfectly, Jimin reported from her position at the tactical display. The Council believes they're dealing with one primitive world and maybe a few dozen ships. They have no idea what we really have. Dong-hyun nodded and pressed a button on his desk. The large wall screen changed to show a map of known space. To most people, it would look like Earth sat alone with just a few small bases in the outer solar system. But Dong-hyun and his team knew the truth. Show them the real map, he said quietly. Jimin typed commands into her computer. Suddenly, the display exploded with new information. Red dots appeared throughout the galaxy, marking human colonies and bases that had been hidden for decades. Blue squares showed the locations of secret shipyards and weapon factories. Green triangles marked the positions of the human fleet. Not dozens of ships, but thousands. Around the table, military officers from every continent watched in satisfaction. General Kim from Korea smiled slightly. Admiral Chen from the Pacific Fleet nodded approvingly. Colonel Murphy from the European Defense Force whistled softly. 17 fully operational star systems, Dong-hyun announced. 43 colonies with populations over 1 million each. 112 smaller outposts and research stations. And 3,417 combat vessels, not counting support ships and civilian craft. Far away in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Yejin stood on the observation deck of Titan shipyard. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the massive construction bays where humanity's most powerful ships had been built in secret. The shipyard was completely hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid that looked like any other piece of space rock to outside sensors. Final. Systems check on the dreadnought Sejong, she called to her engineering team. The ship was her masterpiece, 5 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half. More importantly, it was completely invisible to Council sensors when its stealth systems were active. Her assistant, a young engineer named Park, looked up from his control panel. All systems green, ma'am. The antimatter containment fields are stable, and the quantum torpedo tubes are loaded. She's ready for battle. Yejin allowed herself a moment of pride. The Council thought human technology was primitive because that was what humanity had wanted them to think. For 50 years, Earth had carefully shown the aliens only their oldest, simplest devices. Meanwhile, in hidden labs and secret factories, human scientists had been working day and night to develop weapons and ships that could match anything in the galaxy. On the farming world of Kepler 442b, Minho stood in his office overlooking fields of modified wheat that could grow in the planet's slightly different atmosphere. To any council observer, this looked like a simple agricultural colony with maybe 10,000 farmers. They could not see the massive underground bunkers that housed the colonial defense forces, or the weapon emplacements hidden beneath innocent-looking farm buildings. "Sir, we just received the activation codes," his aide reported. "All 17 colonial systems are standing by for Operation Surprise." Minho walked to his window and looked out at the peaceful farmland. In a few hours, those hidden bunkers would open and reveal some of the most advanced military hardware in the galaxy. Ships that had been camouflaged as farm equipment would shed their disguises and show their true nature as deadly fighters and bombers. "Tell all colony commanders to begin Phase 1, he ordered. "It's time to show the Council what human farmers have really been growing out here." Back on Earth, Subin sat in her laboratory surrounded by computer screens, showing alien communication channels. As Earth's top xenobiologist and intelligence expert, she had spent years learning how different alien species thought and communicated. What she had discovered was disturbing. "Dong-hyun, you need to see this," she called over the secure communication line. "What is it, Subin?" "I've been analyzing Council communication patterns for the past 6 months. The signals they don't think we can decode. This isn't just about our technology being dangerous. They're terrified of something else." She pulled up a series of charts and graphs on her main screen. "Look at this pattern. Every time the Council encounters a species that shows rapid technological development, the same thing happens. First, they offer protection. Then, if the species refuses, they completely destroy them. Not just their military, everything. Every world, every ship, every trace that the species ever existed." Dong-hyun's face appeared on her screen, and she could see the worry in his eyes. "How many species?" "At least 15 in the past million years. Maybe more. The Council has been systematically eliminating any race that might become a threat to their control." Subin paused and pulled up another chart. "But there's something else. The species they target all share certain characteristics: high adaptability, rapid technological growth, and strong survival instincts. The Council isn't just afraid of our weapons, Dong-hyun. They're afraid of us." Meanwhile, in space near Earth's moon, Captain Taeho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Taegukgi. It looked like a simple exploration vessel to outside sensors. But hidden beneath its innocent exterior were some of the most advanced weapons and defense systems humanity had ever built. "Captain, we're receiving coded signals from all over human space," his communications officer reported. "The colonies are waking up." Taeho smiled. For 3 years, he had pretended to be the captain of humanity's only interstellar ship. He had visited Council worlds and let alien officials examine his vessel, carefully showing them only the systems that humanity wanted them to see. They thought the Taegukgi represented the best that humans could build. They had no idea that it was actually one of the smallest ships in the human fleet. "Signal all stealth units," he ordered. "Begin moving to jump positions. The Council fleet will be here in 60 hours, and we want to be ready to welcome them properly." Across the solar system, ships that had been hiding as asteroids, space debris, and maintenance platforms began to move. Their stealth fields kept them invisible to Council sensors. But human detection systems could track every movement. In the command center under Seoul, Dong-hyun watched as reports came in from across human space. Every colony was reporting ready. Every hidden base was operational. Every secret weapon was armed and targeting systems the Council had never seen before. "Jimin, what's our total strength?" She looked at her displays and smiled. 17 star systems under our control. 100,000 ground-based defensive positions. 3,400 combat vessels ranging from fighters to dreadnoughts. Approximately 50 million trained military personnel across all colonies. And most importantly, sir, every single Council spy and monitoring station in human space has been feeding them false information for the past 10 years. Dong-hyun leaned back in his chair. "So when their fleet arrives expecting to find a primitive civilization with a few dozen ships, they're going to find a multi-system empire with enough firepower to take on half the Council fleet," Jimin finished. "And sir, we've been analyzing their tactics and technology for decades. We know exactly how they fight, but they know nothing about how we fight. On his desk, a red light began blinking. It was the signal from Hyunwoo's ship. The council session was over, and the ultimatum had been delivered. "Well, people," Dong-hyun said to his team, "we've been preparing for this moment for 20 years. The council thinks they're about to destroy a primitive species. Instead, they're about to learn why you should never threaten humanity's children." He pressed a button that sent coded signals to every human world, every hidden base, every secret weapon. Across the galaxy, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled began moving toward Earth. The council had declared war on what they thought was a single world. They were about to discover they had declared war on an empire. Admiral Kethrin spread his four wings wider as he stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destiny of Stars. His feathers were a proud gold color that showed his high rank in the council fleet. Around him, his officers worked at control stations, preparing for what they all believed would be a simple police action against a primitive species. "Report on the human system," he ordered his tactical officer. Zephylos, a creature that looked like a large insect with multiple arms, checked his sensors. "Sir, we detect approximately 40 human vessels fleeing the inner system. They appear to be civilian evacuation ships. No signs of military resistance." Kethran's beak curved in what might have been a smile. "Excellent. The humans are showing wisdom by evacuating their civilians. Perhaps they will surrender without forcing us to destroy their world." Behind him, other council officers nodded in agreement. The humans had seemed brave when their ambassador defied the council, but now they were running away like scared children. It was exactly what everyone had expected from such a young species. "How long until we reach the human homeworld?" Kethran asked. 18 hours at current speed, sir. Our 2,000 ships will be more than enough to handle whatever pathetic resistance the humans might try to offer." On Earth, Woo Jin sat in the Orbital Defense Command Center, watching the same sensors that were fooling the council fleet. The evacuation ships the aliens could see were actually old cargo vessels filled with sensor equipment designed to look like frightened civilians on the run. The real civilian population had been moved to safety years ago, relocated to underground cities that could survive even if the planet's surface was completely destroyed. Every major city on Earth was now empty, except for military personnel and automated defense systems. "Status report on the orbital platforms," Woo Jin requested. "All defense platforms are online and hidden," his aide replied. The council sensors still read them as communication satellites and weather monitoring stations. "They have no idea that each one is actually a fortress armed with quantum cannons." Woo Jin nodded and switched his display to show the real situation around Earth. What looked like empty space to council sensors was actually filled with thousands of hidden weapons, stealth ships, and defensive positions. When the council fleet arrived, they would be flying into the most heavily defended system in human space. Deep in space between star systems, Commander Haewon checked the status of her stealth fleet one more time. 30 ships hung in the darkness, completely invisible to any sensors the council possessed. Her flagship, the Arirang, was equipped with experimental quantum torpedoes that could pass through energy shields like they were not even there. "All ships report ready, ma'am," her weapons officer said quietly. "The quantum torpedoes are armed and ready to fire." "Excellent. Remember, people, our job is to hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they know what happened. The council thinks they're hunting rabbits, but they're about to learn they're walking into a wolf pack." Her fleet had been waiting at this position for 3 days, perfectly positioned to intercept the council fleet when it dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. The aliens would expect any human resistance to come from Earth itself. They would never think to look behind them. On Earth, Seokjin worked frantically in the Artificial Intelligence Command Center. Around him, quantum computers hummed as they calculated the positions of every ship, every weapon, and every defensive position in human space. His job was to coordinate what would be the largest military operation in human history. "Protocol Indomitable is ready for activation," he reported to the command center. "All hidden colonies are standing by. All stealth fleets are in position. All secret weapons are armed and ready." The plan was simple but brilliant. For decades, humanity had been playing a careful game of hide-and-seek with the Council. Every time Council observers visited human space, they saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. A few small colonies, some primitive ships, and simple defensive systems. What they did not see were the 17 fully developed star systems under human control. They did not know about the massive fleets hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first met the Council. "Sir, we're getting signals from all colonial systems," his assistant reported. "Everyone is ready and waiting for your signal." Seok-jin looked at the master display showing human space. Every red dot was a hidden colony ready to reveal itself. Every blue square was a secret shipyard about to launch its vessels. Every green triangle was a stealth fleet preparing to attack. "Not yet," he said calmly. "Let them get closer first. We want them to be completely committed before we show our hand." Admiral Kethran was feeling quite pleased as his fleet approached the edge of the Sol system. His sensors showed the human evacuation ships had fled to the outer planets exactly as expected. There were no signs of military resistance, no brave speeches on the communication channels, no desperate last stands. "The humans appear to have accepted reality," he told his staff. "Perhaps we can accomplish this mission without destroying their world. A show of force may be enough to convince them to surrender." "Sir," Zeflos interrupted, "we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer system. Nothing threatening, just odd." Catherine looked at the sensor display. There were indeed some strange readings coming from various points around the human system. Most looked like communication equipment or scientific instruments. Nothing that seemed military. Probably scientific equipment, he decided. Humans are known for their curiosity about space. Ignore it and continue toward their homeworld. What Catherine did not know was that those scientific instruments were actually sensor arrays that were tracking every ship in his fleet. The information was being sent to hidden human forces throughout the galaxy, allowing them to plan their attack with perfect precision. On the farming world of Kepler 442b, Minho received the final targeting data for the Council fleet. His agricultural colony was about to reveal its true nature as one of humanity's most heavily armed military bases. "All units, prepare for Operation Harvest," he announced over the secure communication channel. "The crops are ready for collection." Across the planet, what had looked like farm equipment for 50 years suddenly began to change. Tractors unfolded into mobile weapons platforms. Grain silos opened to reveal missile launchers. Irrigation systems turned out to be underground railways for moving troops and equipment. Within minutes, the peaceful farming world had transformed into a fortress bristling with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. "Colonial Defense Forces reporting ready," Minho announced to Earth Command. "We have enough weapons here to give the Council a very unpleasant surprise." Back in space near Earth, Admiral Kethran was beginning to feel the first hints of worry. His long-range sensors were detecting more and more unusual readings from throughout human space. Energy signatures that did not quite match known human technology. Ship movements that seemed too coordinated for a panicking civilization. "Zeflos, run a complete sensor sweep of the system. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Yes, sir." "Beginning deep scan now." The results that came back made Kethran's feathers stand on end. The energy readings were not random. They were in perfect formation around the system. The ship movements were not panicked evacuations. They were tactical repositioning. And there were far more human vessels than anyone had expected. "Sir," Zeflos said in a voice that was suddenly much less confident, "I think we may have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The humans aren't running away, sir. They're surrounding us." On Earth, Seok-jin watched as the Council fleet realized they had walked into a trap. Every sensor in human space was tracking the alien ships now. Every weapon system was locked onto targets. Every stealth fleet was in position to attack. "All forces report ready," he announced to Dong-hyun. "The Council fleet is exactly where we want them." Dong-hyun looked at the tactical display one more time. 2,000 Council ships were approaching Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that they were actually outnumbered 3-1 by hidden human forces. "Very well," Dong-hyun said calmly. "Signal all units. It's time to show the Council what humanity has really been building out here." He pressed a single button on his control panel. Across human space, the largest fleet in human history came out of hiding. Admiral Kethran watched in growing horror as his sensor displays exploded with new contacts. Ships appeared from nowhere, emerging from asteroid fields, decloaking near gas giants, rising from the surfaces of moons that had seemed uninhabited. Thousands of vessels, all bearing human markings, all moving with military precision. "How many ships?" he whispered. "Sir," Zephylos replied in a shaking voice, "I count over 6,000 human vessels. And sir, they're not primitive. Their technology readings they're more advanced than ours." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethran realized he might have made a terrible mistake. The first sign that something was wrong came when Admiral Kethran's flagship suddenly shook violently. Alarms began blaring across the bridge as his officers scrambled to understand what had happened. "Report!" Kethran shouted over the noise. "Sir, the Bright Wing and the Star Crusher just exploded," Zephylos called out, his multiple arms working frantically at his control station. "I don't understand. There was no weapons fire, no energy signatures, nothing." Commander Haywan smiled grimly as she watched the results of her stealth attack. Her quantum torpedoes had worked exactly as designed, passing through the Council ship's energy shields like they were not even there before exploding inside the enemy hulls. "All ships, fire second salvo," she ordered quietly. "Remember, stay cloaked and keep moving. Hit them and disappear." Around her, 30 human stealth ships fired another wave of invisible weapons into the Council fleet. More explosions bloomed in space as alien vessels were destroyed by weapons they could not see or detect. "Ma'am, the Council fleet is starting to panic," her sensors officer reported. "They're firing randomly into empty space, trying to hit something they can't find." Haywan nodded. That was exactly what she had hoped for. A confused enemy was a vulnerable enemy. On Earth, Jimin watched the battle begin from her command center deep under Sol. Multiple screens showed her the positions of every ship in the solar system. The Council fleet was scattered and confused, trying to fight an enemy they could not see. "Signal Captain Tejo," she ordered. "Begin the main attack." Captain Tejo received the signal on the bridge of his ship, the Teguki. For 3 years, the Council had thought this was humanity's only interstellar vessel. Now they were about to learn it was actually the flagship of the largest human fleet ever assembled. "All ships, drop stealth fields and attack," he commanded. Around Earth, what had looked like empty space suddenly filled with human warships. Hundreds of vessels that had been hiding near asteroids behind moons, and in the shadows of planets revealed themselves and opened fire on the Council fleet. The alien formation, already damaged by Haywan's stealth attack, found itself under assault from every direction. Human ships appeared above them, below them, and on all sides. Energy beams and missile swarms lit up space as the two fleets clashed. Admiral Kethran tried desperately to organize his scattered forces. "All ships, form defensive formation. Return fire on the human vessels." But his orders were too late. The human attack had been planned perfectly. While the Council ships struggled to regroup, more human forces were arriving from other star systems. Minho's colonial defense forces jumped into the battle from 17 different directions at once. Ships that had been disguised as farming equipment and mining vessels revealed their true nature as powerful warships. The Council fleet found itself surrounded by enemies they had never known existed. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from the human homeworld," Zephylos reported. "Something big is coming." Through the chaos of the battle, a new ship emerged from behind Earth's moon. The dreadnought Sejong was 5 kilometers of advanced human engineering, armed with weapons that made the Council's most powerful vessels look like toys. Ye Jin stood on the bridge of her masterpiece, watching as the enemy fleet realized what they were facing. "Target the Council flagship," she ordered. "Let's give their admiral something to think about." The Sejong's main weapon charged with a sound like rolling thunder. A beam of concentrated antimatter lanced out across space, striking 3 Council vessels in a perfect line. All 3 ships simply vanished, turned to atoms in an instant. Admiral Kethran watched in horror as his most powerful cruisers were destroyed by a single shot from the human dreadnought. "What kind of weapon was that?" he whispered. "Sir, energy readings suggest it was an antimatter beam," Zephylos replied. "The humans have weaponized antimatter on a scale we've never seen before." Around the flagship, the Council fleet was being systematically destroyed. Human weapons seemed designed specifically to counter Council defenses. Energy shields that had protected alien ships for millions of years proved useless against human quantum torpedoes. Armor that could stop any known weapon was sliced through by human particle beams like paper. "All ships, retreat," Kethran finally ordered. "We need to regroup and call for reinforcements." But even retreat was not simple. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything in the Council fleet. As alien vessels tried to escape, human fighters swarmed around them like angry insects, striking weak points with surgical precision. In her command center on Earth, Jimin coordinated the battle with the precision of a master chess player. Her artificial intelligence systems predicted every move the Council fleet would make, allowing human forces to be exactly where they needed to be at exactly the right time. "Subin, are you getting those transmissions?" she asked over the communication line. "Yes, I'm intercepting Council communications," Subin replied from her laboratory. "Admiral Kethron is sending emergency messages to the Council homeworlds. He's calling for immediate reinforcements and reporting that human technology is far more advanced than anyone believed." Jimin smiled. "Good, let them call for help. By the time reinforcements arrive, they'll find out that we've been holding back our real strength." The battle continued for 6 hours. When it ended, half of the Council's invasion fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors limped away from Earth, their ships damaged and their confidence shattered. Admiral Kethron sat slumped in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. Of his 2,000 ships, fewer than 900 were still capable of fighting. The humans had lost less than 50 vessels. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human female. It was Jimin, though Kethron did not know her name. "Admiral Kethron," she said in perfect Council standard language. "I am Jimin, Strategic Commander of the Human Defense Forces. I wanted to personally thank you for the excellent battle practice you provided our fleet today." Kethron's beak opened in shock. "Battle practice?" "Oh yes," Jimin continued pleasantly. "This was the first time we've had a chance to test our new weapons against Council technology. I'm pleased to report they performed even better than expected. Your sacrifice has been very educational." We were just testing your defenses," Kethron said weakly. "The real Council fleet will what?" Jimin interrupted. "Be larger? Admiral, I should probably mention that what you faced today was just our home defense force. Would you like to see our real fleet?" The display changed to show a star map of human space. Thousands of red dots appeared, each representing a human warship. There were so many that the screen looked like it was covered in red stars. "Every dot you see represents a fully armed human vessel," Jimin explained. "We have been building this fleet for 50 years, Admiral. We've been waiting for this day since we first learned about the Council's policies regarding younger species." Kethron stared at the display in disbelief. The human fleet was enormous, larger than anything the Council had ever assembled, and if today's battle was any indication, their technology was superior as well. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You're just one primitive world." "Actually," Jimin said with a smile, "we're an interstellar empire with colonies in 23 star systems. But I can understand your confusion. We've worked very hard to make sure the Council only saw what we wanted you to see." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kethron staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence. "Sir," Zeflos finally said, "what do we do now?" Kethron looked at the tactical display one more time. The human fleet was still out there, still surrounding his damaged ships. But they were not attacking. They were just waiting. "Send a message to the Council homeworlds," he said quietly. "Tell them we need to talk." For the first time in 50 million years, the Galactic Council had met their match, and the humans were just getting started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 50 million year history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the Great Chamber, but instead of the usual confident discussions about maintaining galactic order, there was only shocked silence and worried whispers. Hyunwoo stood in the center of the chamber once again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Where before the aliens had looked at him with contempt or anger, now they watched him with something that might have been fear. Vex-Tar sat in his high seat, his scales a pale gray color that showed his distress. Next to him, Mordesh's crystal body flickered between different colors as she processed the impossible information from Admiral Kethron's battle report. "The reports from the Sol system must be incorrect," Vexter said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "No single species could possess such advanced technology without our knowledge." Hyunwoo smiled politely. "I'm afraid the reports are quite accurate, Honorable Vex-Tar. Would you like to see the battle recordings?" A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing scenes from the recent battle. Council representatives watched in growing amazement as human ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. They saw quantum torpedoes passing through energy shields like they were not there. They watched as the massive dreadnought Sejong destroyed 3 Council cruisers with a single shot. "This is impossible," Mordesh said, her crystal body flashing rapid patterns of blue and white. "Our sensors showed only primitive human technology. Simple fusion reactors, basic artificial intelligence, slow ships with chemical rockets. That is what we wanted you to see," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "Humanity has been very careful about what technology we display to Council observers. For 50 years, every time your people visited our space, they saw exactly what we wanted them to see." A ripple of shocked sounds rolled through the chamber. Aliens that had existed for thousands of years were realizing they had been completely fooled by a species they considered children. In his office under Seoul, Dong-hyun watched the council session through hidden cameras. Around him, his staff monitored communications from across the galaxy as news of humanity's victory spread to every world and every species. "Sir, we're receiving messages from dozens of species that the council has been suppressing," Jimin reported. "They want to know if the reports are true. If humanity really defeated a council fleet," Dong-hyun nodded, "send them confirmation. And let them know that Earth is willing to share our technology with any species that wants to defend itself against council oppression." This had been part of the plan from the beginning. Humanity had not just been preparing to defend Earth, they had been preparing to liberate the entire galaxy from council control. On the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, Minho stood in what had once appeared to be a simple farming community. Now it was revealed as one of the most heavily fortified military bases in human space. His farmers were actually some of the best soldiers humanity had ever trained. "Sir, we're getting communication requests from 17 different species," his aide reported. "They want to form military alliances with humanity. They want our help in defending their worlds from council retaliation." Minho smiled. "Accept all of them. It's time to build a new kind of galactic community, one based on cooperation instead of fear." In space near Earth, Captain Taeho stood on the bridge of the Taeguki, now revealed as the flagship of humanity's vast fleet. Through his windows he could see dozens of alien ships arriving, not council vessels, but representatives from species that had been living under council oppression for thousands of years. "Captain, the Andromedan delegation is requesting permission to board," his communications officer reported. "Permission granted, and prepare quarters for the other delegations. It looks like we're going to be hosting a lot of guests." These were species that had been forced to limit their technology, restrict their populations, and accept council oversight for millennia. Now, with humanity's example, they were finding the courage to demand their freedom. Back in the council chamber, Vexitar was struggling to maintain order as representatives demanded answers. How had humanity become so powerful without anyone noticing? Why had council intelligence failed so completely? What did this mean for the future of galactic civilization? "The human ambassador will answer questions," Vexitar announced, his scales still showing his distress. Hyunwoo stepped forward. "I will be happy to answer any questions the council may have." A representative from the Crystalline Collective stood up. "How long has your species possessed this advanced technology?" "We began serious development approximately 75 years ago," Hyunwoo replied. "Shortly after we learned about the council's policies regarding species with rapid technological advancement." Another alien, this one resembling a large jellyfish, spoke next. "You deliberately deceived us about your capabilities?" "We protected ourselves," Hyunwoo corrected. "We learned that the council has a long history of destroying species that might become threats to your control. We decided it would be wise to develop our defenses in secret." Mordesh's crystal body flashed angry red. "You violated galactic law. You built weapons without council approval. You established colonies without permission." Hyunwoo's expression did not change. "We followed the same laws that you follow, Honorable Mordesh. The right of any species to defend itself and to explore the galaxy, unless those rights only apply to council members." The chamber fell silent. Many of the aliens present belonged to species that had been denied those same rights. In her laboratory on Earth, Subin made a discovery that would change everything. She had been analyzing the genetic records that the council kept on all known species, and what she found was shocking. "Dong-hyun, you need to see this immediately," she called over the secure line. What is it, Subin? I've been comparing human DNA with the records from the Council's archives. The species they destroyed over the past 1,000,000 years, the ones that showed rapid technological development, they all share genetic markers with humanity. Dong-hyun's face appeared on her screen, and she could see the realization dawning in his eyes. Are you saying what I think you're saying? The Council didn't just destroy random species that became too advanced, Subin confirmed. They systematically hunted down and eliminated humanity's genetic relatives. Species that thought like us, adapted like us, and developed technology like us. We're not just another young race, Dong-hyun. We're the survivors of a galaxy-wide genocide. Back in the Council chamber, Hyun-woo was delivering humanity's final message to the galactic community. The Council has ruled through fear for 50 million years, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. You have convinced countless species that they needed your protection, your guidance, your control. But protection from what? Guidance toward what? Control for whose benefit? He gestured toward the assembled aliens. Look around this chamber. How many of your species have been told to limit your populations? How many have been forced to restrict your technology? How many have been prevented from exploring the galaxy freely? More and more aliens were nodding or making sounds of agreement. The Council's system of control depended on keeping species isolated and afraid. But humanity had just proven that cooperation and preparation could overcome even the Council's mighty fleets. Humanity offers an alternative, Hyun-woo continued. A galaxy where species work together as equals. Where technology is shared freely, where every world has the right to defend itself and explore the stars. Vextar stood up, his scales now showing deep anger. The Council will not allow this rebellion. We will send larger fleets. We will gather our full military strength and crush this human uprising. Hyun-woo smiled sadly. Honorable Vextar, I'm afraid it's too late for that. The holographic display activated again, this time showing a map of the entire galaxy. Thousands of red dots appeared throughout Council space, human ships that had been moving into position for months. While we have been talking, Hyun-woo explained, the human fleet has been taking control of every major Council military base, shipyard and command center in the galaxy. Your fleets are surrounded. Your commanders are requesting instructions. Your empire is now under new management. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some aliens cheered, others wailed in despair, and still others sat in stunned silence as they realized that the galactic order they had known for millions of years had just ended. When the noise finally died down, Hyun-woo spoke one last time. The age of Council rule is over, he announced. The age of galactic cooperation has begun. Any species that wishes to join the new galactic alliance will be welcomed as equals. Any species that prefers the old ways of domination and control will find that the galaxy has moved on without them. He walked toward the exit, then paused and turned back. Oh, and one more thing, he added with a smile. Earth would like to formally apply for membership in whatever organization replaces the Council. I believe we have something valuable to contribute to galactic civilization. As Hyun-woo left the chamber, he passed a small plaque that had been mounted beside the door. It bore the seal of Earth and a simple message: Humanity, defenders of freedom.